Hey guys, and welcome back to another Mortal Kombat Spawn themed video. Now in last week's video, I gave you all a brief history of the character, his creation, and well, a brief summary of his powers. But today will be slightly different. You see, a hero can only be as good as the villains he has in his rogues gallery, and Spawn is definitely not at all short in that area. So although we will be talking about Spawn today, it won't strictly be focused on him, but instead the enemies and adversaries he's gone up against across the decades, and what exactly are their powers, what makes them unique. Because although Spawn has become nigh unstoppable on many different occasions, there are most certainly some enemies here that can give him a run for his money. We will be talking about the enemies he's had from the depths of hell to the realm of man, and finally the agents of heaven. Now first off, let's get the most obvious one out the way, Violator, an iconic villain of the franchise. Violator is one of the many rulers of hell, reigning the 8th circle for about 70,000 years, and to many is seen as the true villain of the franchise, as it was him that offered Al Simmons the chance to return back to the mortal plane, but at the cost of his humanity, and being a part of his army. Now of course, as many of you do know, especially if you watched last week's video, this deal and plan didn't go quite as well as Simmons would have hoped, as Violator did screw him over. The devil would send him back 5 years after he perished, with no idea of who he was, or the reason as to why he had returned, which was to see his wife Wanda. Now as you would expect, this soured the relationship between Spawn and the demon, causing the two to bump heads verbally and very much so literally. Now despite Violator's position, by issue 100, Simmons had accumulated enough power to battle the devil and did seemingly kill him. However, this is comic books, and no one ever really stays dead, as by issue 199 of Spawn, we learned that the demon never really died, and did in fact continue to exist through a character known as Freak. Although Freak at this point in time is dead, the demon's consciousness still lives on. Now the reason why Violator does what he does is for the upcoming Battle of Armageddon. He purposely strikes deals with those that are desperate and recruits whoever he can into his army for the day of reckoning. Whilst Violator himself is an extremely powerful beast, he's not the only individual to take on the title of Hell's somewhat ruler, with the other two beings that do contend for this spot being Mammon and of course Satan himself, who arguably could be seen as its true ruler. Although not the strongest devil amongst his pantheon, Violator is far from weak, being nearly immortal. You see, he does have the ability to manipulate and control those around him through telepathy, regenerate and shapeshift on command. He has incredible strength that can rival the other devils, but one thing that does make him extremely unique to his brethren is his uncanny ability to utilize necroplasm. The life force and power of a Hellspawn is one that Violator thoroughly understands. So although this devil isn't terrorizing the Image franchise right now, you can be sure to know that he's far from gone. Violator, another demon of hell. The Violator's true form lies beneath his disgusting clown form, showing a far more monstrous and demonic form. Now though the Violator is a denizen of hell, unlike Violator, the Violator is a subordinate of his, being used as a guardian, mentor, and somewhat protector of the Hellspawn, as it's ultimately his job to prepare and train the Hellspawn for Armageddon. However, despite not really being allowed to kill the spawns themselves, the Violator is still a demon, and does relish in the suffering of humans, so it was very much so common for him to irritate or antagonize the spawn. Al Simmons in particular was an individual the Violator relished in irritating, as they did work very close over the years up until Simmons took his own life. From here on out, the Violator would be assigned a new Hellspawn, that being Jim Downing, a spawn that he did get on with a little bit better, as Simmons was known to be a bit volatile.
I fucking hate clowns.
Now the Violator is a rather interesting demon, being the child of a demon known as Phleboton, at least that's how I think it's pronounced. He does in fact have 4 other siblings, with the Violator being the oldest out of all of them. Now despite his age, Violator was treated as the runt of the litter, being tormented by his brothers and even by his own father. Fun fact, whilst we're on the topic of his brothers, they're called Vacillator, Vandalizer, Vaporizer, and Vindicator. Clearly their father had a thing for names that began with V. Now due to the hatred hatred Violator felt from the scoldings his father and brothers would give him, he would in fact lash out, killing his own father out of spite. Now in the human world there would be repercussions, but in hell things worked very different. You see, this would gain the attention of Malebolgia, who was impressed by his malice and spite he showed. So seeing how ruthless the Violator could be, he offered him a position in his legion against heaven. And this was how the Violator forged a relationship with Malebolgia. Now although Violator is significantly weaker than Malebolgia, that's not to say he can't hang up there with the best. He's a demon all the same, and has on many occasions duked it out with Al Simmons, having occasionally gained the upper hand here and there. And to cap this off, he has fought many other demons over the course of the series, proving that he's earned his position in Hell's army. Now other powers that the Violator does have outside of his incredible strength is his ability to utilize hellfire and also manipulate necroplasm. This in turn can lead to the use of shapeshifting, necromancy, and even telepathy. Needless to say, the Violator is an incredible monster of hell, and first you must always keep an eye on the malicious demon. Chapel, the man who started Al Simmons on his journey to become a hellspawn. Chapel may not be a devil, demon, or angel, but he is most certainly a monster nonetheless. Whilst in the CIA, Chapel was given the order to kill Simmons, as his employer and boss Jason Wynn believed that Al would in fact be a spy, but this proved to be false, so Chapel killed Al in cold blood over an empty accusation. Now over the course of the next few years, Chapel would work as a mercenary of sorts, working close to Wynn and executing jobs out of satisfaction or for money. Now despite being associated with hero groups like the Youngbloods, Chapel was the furthest thing from it, developing a taste for torture over his years of service as a mercenary. Eventually, after Al returned as a hellspawn and him wanting vengeance against Wynn, this caused the two to clash multiple times over the years, with one extremely bitter confrontation taking place in Botswana between the two, the place where Chapel had killed Al. Now during this fight, Al basically burnt Chapel's face off. Chapel from this point onwards would don a skull-like mask. Some time would pass after these events, and once Chapel learned of how Al became a hellspawn, he would attempt to replicate his resurrection by taking his own life. But what was quite interesting here, and something that was much to his surprise, he didn't come back as a hellspawn, but instead as one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse with the name and title Lord Chapel. Because of his transformation, he did gain supernatural ability, but his title as horseman would be very short, as he was quickly stripped of his title and power. Now although Chapel is a mortal man, his background as a mercenary made him a formidable opponent in both ranged and close combat. To cap this off, Chapel was a super soldier of sorts, being injected with chemicals and drugs that would increase his already impressive strength and reflexes. So this did allow him to go toe to toe against Spawn and somewhat battle each other on equal footing. Angela, a woman that is as dangerous as she is beautiful. Angela is an agent of heaven who thrives in hunting the hellspawns created by Malebolgia, and has defeated multiple hellspawns over her career. She's known as one of the fiercest warriors amongst the angels, with 30 different hellspawn kills under her belt, including the medieval hellspawn. Now from her debut, Angela proves to be a formidable force and threat for Spawn, with her weapons like her dimensional lance being specifically designed to hunt him down. But after being framed for a crime in heaven, she would escape heaven with Al, and the two did confide in each other, and over the course of time do develop a somewhat physical and emotional relationship, but this wouldn't at all last. Regardless, the two would become uneasy allies from this point onwards, occasionally teaming up. One of the more noticeable ones is where the two paired up and did take down Malebolgia, a fight that she unfortunately wouldn't make it through, as she did perish at the devil's hands. Now an interesting fact about Angela is that she isn't exactly a singular being. You see, she's in fact comprised of 5 different souls in heaven that make up her psyche, although all of these seemingly function in unison, creating Angela as an individual. Now in terms of power, she's easily able to take on the strongest demons and hellspawns to have existed, having specialized in killing their kind, so she can easily dispose of those in one-on-one combat. On top of this, she does use the dimensional lance, a weapon that can permanently kill a hellspawn and strip them of their bond to their symbiotic suit. The final ability that the lance does have is the power to send individuals to alternate realms and dimensions. Now to cap things off on Angela, despite her being a recognizable and iconic face in Image Comics, Angela is now part of Marvel. You see, there was a copyright issue between Todd McFarlane and Neil Gaiman, and since this copyright dispute, Marvel has gained right and ownership of the character, and she herself has in fact been incorporated into the main 616 timeline, which she is a long lost child of Odin and seemingly sister to Thor. Her background in Image Comics has been been retconned, so this version of Angela can be seen as a reinterpretation of the character. So any ties that she did really have to Heaven, or Spawn for that matter, are completely gone. So Angela at this point in time is actually a Marvel character, despite her Image Comics origins. Anti-Spawn / Redeemer. Now the Redeemers can be seen as Heaven's answer to the Hellspawns. They're symbiotic suits imbued with great strength to take on the denizens of Hell. Now an interesting thing about the Redeemers is that unlike Hellspawns that use necroplasm, Redeemers use elemental fire that burns and damages anything it comes into contact with. Now throughout the series, there has in fact been more than just one Redeemer. There has been 3, with the first being Jason Wynn, the one responsible for killing Al as a mortal, and this was one of the reasons as to why he was chosen to become a Redeemer. However, the suit itself was unable to get the job done due to Wynn's impurity and deceptive nature. Because of this, the suit was unable to function at its peak and was recalled and rebuilt before being bonded with another host. The second individual to don the suit was Phil Timper. Now growing up, Phil was a troubled individual, going in and out of prison, but once he found faith in God, it did help set him straight. Because of this, he was seen as the ideal candidate to wield the Redeemer suit, and due to his faith in God, he put up a better fight against Spawn than Wynn ever could, really pushing Al to his limits. Now despite Phil's faith, Al's experience as a Hellspawn clearly proved to be far too much, and the second Redeemer would be defeated by Spawn. Now the third and current wielder of the suit is Eddie Frank, and Eddie's story is one that is both twisted and tragic. Growing up in an abusive household, Eddie idolized the deeds that Spawn did, saving the weak and innocent by any means necessary, and due to lacking a real father figure in his life, Spawn did fill that gap, but it didn't stop the regular beatings that he did get from his father. Eventually things went too far, and Eddie, out of self-defense, pulled out a gun and shot his father dead. Now despite thinking that this was the morally right decision and something Spawn would do, it would land him in a juvenile detention facility, and from here is where his malice and resentment would build towards his idol. Upon release, he would cause a massive shooting at a station before taking his own life. Now due to the resentment he felt towards Spawn, he would surprisingly be picked as the next Redeemer, and the two would clash before he came to the realization that his anger was misplaced. Now although the hatchet was somewhat buried, Eddie would become a puppet of the Violator, causing the two to clash once again. But this time, upon Eddie's loss, he would be stripped of his suit and his wings, reverting him back to a mere child. Now although Eddie was defeated and seemingly stripped of the suit, it has been confirmed that he is still indeed the wielder of the Redeemer. So we do not exactly know what will be happening with the Redeemer or Eddie from this point onwards. But that sums up everything I did want to say in this video. I do hope you enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun putting this together and actually learned a lot along the way. A lot of these characters are individuals that were born in the early 90s, so I suspect many of the fans of Mortal Kombat right now might not be too familiar with them. So that being said, I do hope you've enjoyed this, and I've possibly encouraged you to pick up the series. If you are interested and you're struggling to find a starting point, I do recommend picking up Spawn the Origins collection, as it is a reprint and a collection of some of the issues from the original 90s run. But if you're looking for something a little bit more modern, I do also recommend Spawn Resurrection, where Al returns back to being the main Hellspawn of the series after he died. And finally, if reading isn't your thing, I do highly recommend the HBO series, as it is pretty damn good. And I say this as someone who loves movies. Don't watch live action, don't subject yourself to that. Watch reviews about it so you can laugh at other people's pain. But yes guys, that wraps up everything I did want to say here. Once again, I do hope you've enjoyed this and learnt more by doing so. We're only a few mere days away from Spawn's release, so I do hope you've enjoyed this sort of content, as I do have a lot of love for comic books. But yes, that is everything I did want to say here. So before this video wraps up, if possible, let's try getting it to about 500 likes, and also do not forget to take that bell, as it will notify you when I do upload a video. But yeah guys, as always, please comment, like, subscribe, and share this video with everyone you know. Please take care, and I'll see you all next time.